He was just passing through. Until he heard the alien girl whisper, "Help me." The rust-colored moon hung heavy in the sky as Jace Merrill adjusted his atmospheric filter mask. Arid wind swept across the barren plains of Tartarus, a forgotten world on the edge of settled space. Once a mining colony, now just another abandoned shell where people like him scraped by. Negative on Sector 4, he muttered into his wrist communicator. Moving to Grid 5. No response came. His partner Ren was probably passed out in their crawler again, leaving Jace to do the actual salvaging. Typical. He thumbed the scanner's worn surface, watching energy signatures flicker across the cracked display. Nothing valuable yet. Just another wasted night. He crested the ridge overlooking the vast crater locals called the Devil's Teardrop. The scanner beeped suddenly, a small but definite energy reading. Jace frowned. This area had been picked clean months ago. "Ren," he tried again. "You seeing this?" Static answered him. The reading was growing stronger. Jace adjusted the calibration, trying to narrow the source. It wasn't typical salvage, not mining equipment or standard tech. The signature was pulsing, almost like a heartbeat. Sliding down the dusty slope, he followed the reading to a fresh impact site, dirt still smoking at the edges. Something had crashed here recently. Very recently. "What the hell?" he whispered. Half buried in the red soil lay a sleek escape pod, its hull design unlike anything he'd seen before. Not Alliance military or Frontier merchant class. Definitely not Dominion-made. The material shimmered under his helmet light with an almost organic quality. Jace's mind raced with possibilities. Unknown tech meant unknown value. Enough credits to get off this rock, maybe. To start fresh somewhere green, somewhere with actual weather patterns that weren't variations of dust storm. The pod's hatch bore no obvious opening mechanism. Jace ran his gloved hand along the smooth surface, searching for an access panel. As his fingers traced what might have been seams, the material beneath them suddenly liquefied, parting like water. He stumbled backward, pulse rifle raised. The opening widened, revealing a dimly lit interior. "Hello," he called, immediately regretting the word. Salvagers didn't announce themselves. They took what they needed and disappeared. A weak light pulsed inside, drawing his attention. Cautiously, he approached the pod again, peering inside. Curled in what appeared to be a suspension cradle lay a figure, small, humanoid, but definitely not human. Her skin was pale blue with faint bioluminescent patterns tracing beneath the surface. Her eyes, when they fluttered open, were entirely black, like liquid obsidian. She was injured. Dark fluid, blood, seeped from a wound in her side. More concerning were the restraints on her wrists and ankles, partially melted from what looked like an escape attempt. Not a crash survivor. A prisoner. The alien girl's eyes fixed on him with uncanny focus. Her lips parted, revealing teeth too sharp for comfort. "Help me," she whispered in perfect standard, her voice like gravel across silk. Everything in Jace screamed to walk away. Non-human sentience meant trouble. Escaped prisoners meant even more trouble. The Dominion had strict policies about harboring aliens, particularly those who'd been officially detained. "Please," she added, one slender hand reaching toward him. "They're coming." In the distance, Jace heard the distinctive whine of atmospheric engines. Search craft. Military grade, judging by the pitch. "Shit," he muttered. If they found him with whoever this was, best case scenario was a quick execution. The girl's eyes never left his face. "I am not what they say. Help me, and I will ensure you never want for anything again." Jace hesitated, then made a decision that would unravel everything he thought he knew. "Can you walk?" he asked, holstering his rifle and reaching for her. She nodded weakly. As he helped her from the pod, he noticed her clothing, simple but made from material similar to the ship itself, somehow both solid and fluid. Name's Jace, he said, supporting her weight as they scrambled up the ridge toward his hidden crawler. What do I call you? She paused, seeming to consider the question carefully. Lyra, she finally answered. You may call me Lyra. The search craft's lights swept over the horizon as they disappeared into the night. Behind them, the empty pod shimmered once, then began to dissolve into the red earth, as if it had never existed at all. 3 days and Jace still couldn't figure her out. Lyra moved around his shelter with curious grace, examining everything with those unsettling obsidian eyes. She'd recovered quickly, too quickly for the severity of her wounds. The gash in her side had closed within hours, leaving only a faint iridescent line across her blue skin. You're staring again, she said without turning from the viewport. Jace flinched. Sorry. Still getting used to. He gestured vaguely at her entire being. To what? An alien in your home? Now she did turn, her head tilting at an angle that felt just slightly wrong. Or to the fact that I can hear your thoughts. He nearly dropped the protein pack he was preparing. You can what? A smile played at her lips, revealing those 2 sharp teeth. Not all of them. Just the loud ones. The ones with the feeling behind them. Jace set the food down carefully. That's invasive. That's survival, she countered. Where I come from, it's as natural as breathing. And where exactly is that? Lyra moved to the table, her movements fluid, like water finding its path. Far. Beyond your mapped territories. My people are called the Vesh. Never heard of them. Few have. We prefer it that way. She touched the food curiously. Your Dominion found our scouting vessel 6 months ago. They've been studying us since. The way she said, studying, made Jace's skin crawl. He'd heard rumors about Dominion research facilities. No ethics committees, no oversight. They discovered our telepathic abilities, Lyra continued. Began experiments to enhance them. Weaponize them. Her voice hardened. I was the only success. Outside, the wind howled, battering against the shelter's metal walls. Jace's scanner beeped with proximity alerts, another patrol, their third in as many days. They're getting closer, he muttered, checking the display. They won't stop, Lyra said quietly. The scientist who led my program, Dr. Kane, he believes I'm the key to something beyond simple communication. Something called the void threshold. The what? A theoretical state where telepathy becomes more. Not just reading thoughts, but controlling them. Rewriting them. She looked at her hands. I began showing signs of crossing that threshold 2 weeks ago. That's when I escaped. Jace cursed under his breath. No wonder the patrols were intensifying. She wasn't just an escape test subject, she was potentially the most dangerous weapon in the sector. I need to get you off-world, he decided. Lyra tilted her head again. Why risk yourself for me? It was a fair question. One Jace had been asking himself since that night in the crater. Because decent people don't leave others to be tortured, no matter what species they are, he answered finally. Something like respect flickered in her black eyes. Your thoughts say there's more to it than decency. Before Jace could respond, the shelter's security system blared. On the monitor, a military-grade rover approached, kicking up red dust in its wake. Dominion Patrol, Lyra whispered, suddenly tense. Dr. Kane is with them. I can feel his mind, cold, precise, hungry. Jace grabbed his go-bag and rifle. There's a maintenance tunnel under the floor. It leads to a garage on the other side of the ridge. We need to move. As they lifted the hidden panel, the outer door shuddered under a heavy impact. Merrill, a voice called through the speaker system. Salvager license KT 4752, we know you're harboring fugitive property. Surrender the asset and you may receive leniency. Jace helped Lyra into the tunnel. Go. I'm right behind you. She gripped his arm, her touch electric. He'll kill you. Kane doesn't leave witnesses. Trust me, Jace said, pressing his auxiliary scanner into her hand. Follow this to the end. I'll meet you there. As Lyra disappeared into the darkness, Jace sealed the panel and activated the emergency protocol on his console. 30 seconds until the shelter's power core would overload, not enough to kill anyone, but enough to create chaos. The door burst open. 3 soldiers in Dominion armor stormed in, followed by a thin man in a pristine white coat. His eyes, cold and analytical, locked onto Jace immediately. Where is she? Dr. Kane asked softly. Jace raised his hands slowly. Where's who? The countdown in his head reached 0. The lights flickered once, then died as a concussive wave knocked everyone to the floor. In the darkness, Jace slipped out the emergency hatch, sealing it behind him. The Dominion had found him. There was no going back now. The crawler groaned as Jace pushed it well beyond safe speeds across the Tartarus Badlands. Beside him, Lyra watched the desolate landscape with fascination. Your planet was once alive, she said suddenly. I can feel the echoes. Not my planet, Jace corrected. Just where I've been stuck for the past 3 years. And yeah, they say Tartarus had oceans once, before the mining corporations stripped the atmosphere. Lyra traced patterns on the dusty window. Why did you come here? Running from something. Same as most people who end up on hellholes like this. He adjusted their course, steering toward the distant mountain range. There's a research station in the Northern Territory. Boundary Station 6. Officially it monitors atmospheric conditions. Unofficially. It's a waypoint for those avoiding Dominion attention, Lyra finished, reading his surface thoughts. Will you stop doing that? Jace snapped. Sorry. She didn't sound sorry. Who's Eliza? Jace's hands tightened on the controls. A colleague from before. She runs the station now. If anyone can get us off-world without attracting notice, it's her. The crawler crested a ridge, revealing the vast expanse of what locals called the Scar, a massive canyon cutting through the planet's surface. In the distance, perched on the far side, a cluster of domes glinted in the harsh sunlight. Boundary 6, Jace said. Should reach it by nightfall. As they descended into the Scar, Lyra grew increasingly agitated. Something's wrong, she murmured, pressing her fingertips to her temples. Too many mines. Too organized. What do you mean? Military precision. Contained excitement. Anticipation. Her eyes widened. They're waiting for us. Jace swore, bringing the crawler to an abrupt halt behind a rock formation. He grabbed the binoculars from the dash and scanned the station. Nothing seemed amiss, but he'd learned to trust instincts, his and apparently now Lyra's. How could they know we'd come here? Dr. Kane is methodical. He would have analyzed your background, identified likely allies. Lyra's voice trembled slightly. Your friend Eliza, when did you last speak with her? Years ago, Jace admitted. But she wouldn't. Everyone breaks under certain pressures, Lyra said quietly. Everyone has vulnerabilities. Night fell as they debated options. The temperature dropped rapidly, the crawler's heating system struggling against Tartarus's extreme climate. Eventually, Jace made a decision. I'll go alone, scout the situation. If it's compromised, I'll return and we'll find another way. Lyra shook her head. If Kane is there, he'll detect your deception immediately. He's not telepathic, but he reads micro-expressions, vocal patterns. It's how he controlled us in the facility. Then what do you suggest? Her black eyes reflected the dashboard lights. Let me show you something. She placed her slender blue fingers against his temples. Jace instinctively recoiled, but she held firm. Trust me, she whispered. The sensation began subtly, a warmth spreading from her fingertips into his mind. Then images flooded in, a sterile laboratory, restraints biting into blue skin, Kane's face hovering close, instruments designed to measure pain responses, other aliens, Vesh, in adjacent cells, their mental screams silenced one by one. And something else, a technique. A mental shield. When Lyra withdrew her hands, Jace gasped, disoriented. What did you do to me? Shared knowledge. A basic Vesh defensive technique. It won't hold against direct interrogation, but it might mask your immediate intentions from casual observation. Jace flexed his fingers, feeling oddly lightweight. This is how your people communicate. One way, she confirmed. Faster than words. More precise. They approached the station under cover of darkness. As they neared the perimeter, Jace spotted the subtle signs of Dominion presence, non-standard antenna configurations, modified security protocols, too many vehicles for a research outpost. Your instincts were right, he whispered. They've taken the station. Lyra nodded grimly. And they're broadcasting a signal, psychic amplification. They're trying to draw me in. Before Jace could respond, floodlights suddenly illuminated the area around them. A voice boomed from hidden speakers. Subject L7, your resistance is admirable but ultimately futile. Return to containment willingly, and we will spare your human accomplice. Lyra turned to Jace, her expression resolute. I have a plan, but you won't like it. I rarely do, he replied, readying his rifle. The Dominion transport hummed as it cut through Tartarus's upper atmosphere. In the holding area, Jace sat with his hands bound, watching armed guards through narrowed eyes. Across from him, Dr. Kane studied Lyra with clinical fascination as she lay sedated on a medical gurney. The plan had been simple but desperate: surrender, get taken aboard, then escape during transit when security would be minimal. So far, only the surrender part had gone smoothly. Fascinating, Kane murmured, examining readings from Lyra's neural monitor. Even sedated, her brainwave patterns show remarkable coherence. The void threshold is closer than ever. Jace kept his expression neutral, focusing on maintaining the mental shield Lyra had taught him. She's just a kid. Whatever you think she can do, she can't. Kane smiled thinly. Mr. Merrill, she's not a kid. The Vesh mature differently than humans. What you see as a young girl is a fully developed intelligence over 70 of your years old. He adjusted something on the monitor. And she's already demonstrated capabilities beyond our initial projections. A guard approached, whispering something in Kane's ear. The scientist frowned. It seems your former colleague Dr. Voss managed to send a transmission before we secured her cooperation. The Frontier Coalition has taken interest in our research. Jace's stomach clenched. Eliza had tried to help after all. And paid for it. Where are you taking us? He asked, testing the restraints subtly. To a facility better equipped for the final phase of testing. Kane's eyes gleamed with unsettling excitement. The void threshold requires specific conditions. Isolation. Focused pressure. And stimuli that can only be safely administered in a controlled environment. Torture, you mean? Science, Mr. Merrill. The advancement of humanity. By experimenting on non-humans. Kane waved dismissively. The Vesh are remarkable specimens, but ultimately they serve a greater purpose. Once we understand how to replicate their abilities in humans, imagine the possibilities. Instantaneous communication across vast distances. Military applications alone. Thought control, Jace interrupted. Mass manipulation. Something flickered in Kane's eyes. Among other applications, yes. The ship shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring. Kane grabbed a console for support. What's happening? He demanded. A voice responded over the intercom, atmospheric disturbance, sir. Unexpected storm front. Navigational systems are compromised. Kane cursed. Stabilize our course. We cannot risk damage to the subject. As the guards rushed to secure equipment, Jace felt a subtle pressure in his mind, a presence, gentle but insistent. Now, Lyra's voice whispered inside his head. She wasn't as sedated as she'd appeared. In one fluid motion, Jace snapped the weakened restraints, lunged forward, and tackled the nearest guard. The ship pitched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Alarms screamed as systems failed in cascading sequence. Kane stumbled toward Lyra, a syringe in hand. "You're doing this," he hissed. "Stop it immediately." Her black eyes snapped open. "No." The ship's interior lights flickered and died. In the emergency red glow, Jace saw Lyra rise from the gurney, restraints falling away as if they'd never been secured. The neural monitor exploded in a shower of sparks. "What are you?" Kane whispered, terror finally breaking through his scientific detachment. Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she reached out, fingers barely touching Kane's forehead. The scientist went rigid, then collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. "We need to get to the escape pods," Jace said, grabbing a weapon from an unconscious guard. Lyra nodded, swaying slightly. "That took more than I expected." The ship was plummeting now, systems failing faster than the crew could restore them. They fought their way to the escape pod bay, encountering minimal resistance. Most personnel were desperately trying to save the ship. As they strapped into the last functional pod, Jace couldn't help asking, "What did you do to him?" Lyra's eyes met his. "I showed him the truth. Every being he ever hurt. Every pain he ever caused. All at once." The pod ejected, tumbling away from the failing transport. Through the viewport, they watched the larger ship spiral downward, breaking apart in Tartarus's thin atmosphere. "I never meant for anyone to die," Lyra whispered. Jace took her hand. It was cold, trembling. "Sometimes survival doesn't give us clean choices." Their pod crashed in the Deadlands, the uninhabited equatorial region where even the hardiest Tartarus scavengers feared to tread. As they emerged from the smoking wreckage, Jace realized with grim certainty that their journey had only just begun. And somewhere in the darkness of his mind, something new stirred, an awareness that hadn't been there before. A connection. The Deadlands earned their name. Nothing grew in the cracked earth. No animals scurried between the razor-sharp rock formations. Even the wind seemed dead, stirring only occasionally to shift toxic dust from one barren patch to another. Jace and Lyra had been walking for 3 days, rationing the meager supplies from the escape pod. His ribs ached from the crash landing. Her strength waxed and waned unpredictably, moments of remarkable power followed by near collapse. "We need to find shelter," Jace said, eyeing the darkening sky. "Radiation levels spike after sunset." Lyra nodded wearily. Her blue skin had taken on a grayish pallor that worried him. Whatever she'd done to bring down the transport had drained her dangerously. "There," she pointed toward a distant outcropping. "I sense something. Not life, exactly. But purpose." They found it as the first sun set, an abandoned mining outpost carved into the rock face. Ancient equipment lay scattered about, preserved in the dry air. No bodies, thankfully. Whoever had worked here had either left voluntarily or had enough time to carry away their dead. Inside, Jace secured the perimeter while Lyra sank onto a dusty bench. "How bad is it?" he asked finally, gesturing to her weakened state. She attempted a smile. "The void threshold, it's not meant to be crossed without preparation. Kane pushed me toward it with his experiments, but I wasn't ready. And now? Now I'm caught between. Neither fully here nor there." She looked at her hands. "It's consuming me from within." Jace sat beside her. "There has to be a way to reverse it. Perhaps among my people. But they're worlds away." Silence fell between them. Outside, the second sun slipped below the horizon, plunging the landscape into deep twilight. I can feel them searching, Lyra said suddenly. Not just Dominion forces. Others now. The Frontier Coalition. Independent mercenaries. News of what happened has spread. A telepathic alien who can disable starships with her mind. Yeah, that would attract attention. Jace checked his stolen weapon. Limited charge left. We need to get off this rock. To go where? There's nowhere in your territories I would be safe. Or free. Jace didn't have an answer for that. Their respite was short-lived. Before dawn, the distinct rumble of engines echoed across the deadlands. Not Dominion this time, the ship's signatures were different. Sleeker. Frontier Coalition most likely, or private contractors. They're surrounding us, Lyra said, eyes unfocused as she sensed their movements. They've learned from Kane's mistake. They're using dampening technology to limit my abilities. Jace peered through a narrow window. At least 6 ships, deploying ground forces in a standard containment pattern. Too many to fight. Jace Merrill, a voice boomed from outside. This is Commander Ellis of the Frontier Coalition. We know you have the Vesh subject. Surrender peacefully and you will receive full amnesty. Yeah, heard that before, Jace muttered. Lyra stood shakily. I need to end this. Too many will die otherwise. What are you planning? Her black eyes met his. The void threshold. I'm going to cross it fully. You said that was killing you. It is. But if I surrender control, embrace it instead of fighting it, I might be able to do something more. Jace grabbed her shoulders. That's suicide. It's evolution, she corrected gently. Then, with unexpected tenderness, she placed her hand against his cheek. Since the moment you found me, your mind has called to mine. Did you know that? Something in you resonates with the void. Before he could respond, the first explosion hit the outpost's outer wall. Coalition forces, done with negotiation. Trust me one more time, Lyra whispered. She placed both hands on his temples. The connection formed instantly, stronger than before. But this time, Jace wasn't just receiving, he was being pulled along, dragged into depths he hadn't known existed. He saw Lyra's homeworld, vast crystalline structures rising from purple oceans, Vesh moving through cities that seemed alive themselves. He felt her childhood, her capture, her pain under Kane's experiments. And beyond that, something else, a vast consciousness, a network of minds spanning galaxies. The void threshold wasn't a weapon. It was a doorway. Outside, the coalition forces breached the outpost's main entrance. Inside, Lyra's body began to glow from within, bioluminescent patterns spreading across her skin in fractal patterns. What's happening? Jace gasped, unable to break the connection. I'm becoming what I was always meant to be, she answered, her voice echoing strangely. And I'm taking you with me. The soldiers burst into the room, weapons raised, just as the light from Lyra's body intensified to blinding brilliance. A shockwave of psychic energy pulsed outward, dropping everyone to their knees. When Commander Ellis recovered enough to look up, the room was empty. Where Jace and the alien had stood, only a fine, shimmering dust remained, swirling in patterns that hurt the eyes if watched too closely. The official report listed them both as deceased, vaporized by an unknown weapon. The unofficial whispers told a different story. On distant worlds, far beyond Dominion or Coalition space, travelers occasionally spoke of strange sightings, a human man and a blue-skinned woman, appearing without ships in remote outposts, helping those in need before vanishing again. Some said they could speak directly into your mind. Others claimed they could move between stars without technology. Most dismissed these as spacer tales, exaggerations born from loneliness and too much synthetic alcohol. But on quiet nights, when the stars seemed especially bright, those who had encountered them would look skyward and wonder about the boundaries between species, between minds, between dimensions, and about what waited beyond when those boundaries fell away. And somewhere in that infinite beyond, Jace and Lyra continued their journey, no longer salvager and fugitive, but something entirely new, pioneers on the threshold of a universe larger and more wondrous than humanity had ever imagined.